So hello, welcome everybody to our first High Impact Practices brown bag of the academic year. For those of you not familiar, UNCG has a High Impact Practices Committee co-chaired by myself, Jennifer Stevens, the director of the Residential Colleges Office in the UTLC, and Dr. Lee Phillips, the director of the Undergraduate Research, Scholarship, and Creativity Office, also part of the UTLC. We are honored today to have a team from Utah Valley University here to talk about their experiences integrating high impact practices and the development of a high impact practices teaching certification at their institution, which is an initiative that we at UNCG are looking into developing as well. So we're very honored to have them with us today, and I will turn it over to them. Thank you all.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting us to come talk about this. My name is Sam Getterborg. I am currently the interim senior director of the Office of Teaching and Learning. Recently, Wendy Athens, who was our previous senior director, left the university. And so I do apologize up front for that. A lot of that institutional knowledge went with her. And so as you can see, we have, by committee, we're going to have to kind of fill those big shoes. We'll do the best we can. If we have to say, great question, we'll get back to you on that one. We'll do that, but we do appreciate this opportunity. I am going to, at least when we talked about this and try to figure, I'm not quite sure exactly what direction or what advice we can best offer. Like I said, Wendy was kind of a lot of the spearhead strategic initiative behind a lot of these efforts, but and we did use, but I'll explain a little bit about what happened, kind of like the foundation of this, and a little bit of what kind of the focus and efforts that we did. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen on this. And there we go. All right, so on, let's see. Hopefully you can see, everyone can see my screen, right? Okay, perfect. So what we have right here is kind of like, this is our event dashboard. And if you come down here, we have our certifications, and you can see we have kind of one of the emphasis, and I'll zoom in a tad because I know with smaller devices, it might be hard to read. What we did is the theoretical framework behind what we are these certifications. And currently we have 14 of them. And obviously you say, well, wait, there's 14 high impact. No, we have other stuff like online teaching, flexible live stream teaching. So we have other certifications. And so notice that this little target idea is going to let us know which one of these. So right here, anti-racist pedagogy, that is one of our targeted HIP certifications. And as you can see, 25 hours. And this is not what they have to pay. This is compensation they get. So one of the things that we did during our CARES funding that we received through COVID is we said, well, we want to invest in our faculty. So what sort of certifications can we build? How can we get that? Now, as everyone knows, CARES funding is going to dry up soon, and we're not going to have that. So we're going to have new conversations. And yes, that's a new challenge that we're going to deal with after the fact. So you can look at this and say, wow, of course, $1,000 to attend anti-racist pedagogy. Now I know why you can get faculty to come to this. And yes, we're going to have those new challenges after the fact when we have to figure out ways. We're talking about trying to look at ways to make this as part of ranked tenure promotion, other things that would still want to drive faculty's initiative to want to participate in these. So just keep that in mind, but realize that that is, and I'll pop this in the chat because this is a public facing webpage. So if you are interested, you may more than happy to kind of peruse and look at this. You can read more about each of our certifications, when they run, requirements, and then obviously the register button won't work for you because it's going to authenticate you into our system. So that one doesn't work, but you can at least get a feel of what we do for our recruitment. You can see here we have, like I said, we have other ones that are not necessarily HIP focused, but part of this is that theoretical framework of the HIPs is really what we wanted to do as many of the certifications as we possibly could. So like even inclusive, intercultural, and global pedagogy here, project-based learning on this certification, service learning, teaching first-year students, as you can see, that's kind of one of the thoughts. We went through each of the HIPs and said, which type of certification? And then we kind of developed out that certification, worked on that. Really, all of these are faculty developed and faculty driven. So the Office of Teaching and Learning, the staff here don't necessarily go develop this. Now, we might if we had the expertise, because we do also have teachers. I teach, ISA teachers. So we have instructors in our office, but we wanted to also break that out and have other faculty own these spaces, build this out, especially the experts. And so we actually brought some of those experts with us today to kind of talk a little bit more about each of their courses and what they did and kind of go a little bit more in depth. This is more of the holistic view. And as you can see, there's other ones like the undergraduate research, but we're going to focus on, I guess, which one do we want to do? We could do the anti-racist first. So so now we've talked about how we developed all of these, and it's been a year's progress, okay? So what you're seeing here is the accumulation of probably 3 years worth of work. And so keep that in mind. So I'll turn the time over to Leandra, and she can talk about anti-racist pedagogy.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. So my name is Leandra Hernandez. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Communication, as well as is my colleague and co-conspirator, Dr. Stevie Munns, who's here with us too. I'm also the associate academic director for service learning, and I have helped in developing and implementing our anti-racist pedagogy workshop along with 4 other colleagues here at UVU, as well as our service learning pathway with Dr. John Westover, who is our director of the Center for Social Impact here, or the academic director at least. So the anti-racist pedagogy certification pathway has a fun history. It started as one short kind of faculty convocation presentation about 2.5 years ago, then became one workshop for our Global Intercultural Committee and their pathway and certification. And Stevie is also on that committee with me as well. And then because the demand was so strong, and we were very happy to see that, because, you know, critical race theory, anti-racist pedagogy has some tenuous sorts of definitions depending on, you know, the media and the cultural spaces. It ended up moving from one workshop to 4 workshops to now a full-blown 25 hours certification. So my co-colleagues who facilitate that with me are Dr. Diane McAdams-Jones, who's in nursing, Dr. Mia Kong and Trevor Warburton, both of them are in education, and then Meg Singer, who is the director of the Native American Initiative here at UVU. So it is, as you can see here, a 25-hour certification workshop that is run asynchronously through our Canvas course shell that we constructed together with the Office of Teaching and Learning. And it takes faculty members through an intensive history of racism in the United States. So each one of us as the co-facilitators kind of has our own unique sort of intersectional identity and positionality that informs our own modules. And mine, for example, focuses on Latina or X identities in the United States, kind of the histories of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and how what was Mexican land became American land. So collectively, we talk a little bit about the history of racism in the United States, but then we also transform it to thinking about what faculty members can do from an anti-racist pedagogy lens in their classrooms. So at the end of the certification process, we have 2 live events where faculty members, once they've completed certain milestones, join the facilitators virtually through Microsoft Teams, and then we kind of workshop their syllabi. We work with them about developing their syllabi. We talk to them about how they can develop and implement anti-racist key assignments, or maybe a more holistic anti-racist framework. And then by completing this workshop and several of the others that are listed here, we also aid faculty members in working through their HEA status, whether they want to be an associate fellow or a fellow. A lot of the reflections that we have in the course are orchestrated so that can serve as part of their HEA fellow application. And the same is true for service learning. Service learning is a shorter certification. So the anti-racist pedagogy one is 25 hours. The service learning workshop is probably about half of that, right? We have 3 synchronous meetings with faculty members where we talk about service learning through the 6 R's, like roles, reciprocity, reflection, so on and so forth. And then we also work with faculty members there to help them develop their service learning courses and their syllabi. We're in the process of developing a phase 2 service learning fellowship that is going to be called the Social Impact Service Learning Fellowship to kind of help faculty members if they wanted to go to that next level. So we're hoping to pilot that next semester. And since Dr. C.V. Munns is with us, she can tell us a little bit about the Global Intercultural Committee and Pathway and some of the workshops that we offer there too.
Hi. Okay, so for the Global Intercultural Pathway, as Liam mentioned, we kind of have this structure where you can take a variety of different courses to learn underneath this umbrella of a particular theme. And so with the Global Intercultural Pathway, there's a couple courses that are required for all faculty to take. And then there are a variety of courses after that that you can select. And so, for example, Leah and I we co-teach a course on gender and sexuality. That's one of the elective courses underneath that umbrella that faculty can take. So while there's some structure to it, everyone has to take particular courses, there's also flexibility, which I think is really important. This is a space that also, like many things, has changed and shifted quite a bit in terms of the content and how it's taught. We've moved, I would say, the past couple years from teaching just this is what the ideas are and this is what the content is to now really transitioning, as Leah mentioned, like in the wave of CRT and all of the political conversation and media conversation, how do these contact points and information connect with that, and how do you manage that in the classroom? When we have the workshop and we conduct the workshop, it's really a very fluid, open space. We've had, I would say, folks all across the spectrum of experience, lots of knowledge on the topic, not that much knowledge on the topic. But the really cool thing about the certificates, I would say, and what I think keeps folks, like myself and Leah doing this, is how powerful it is for the group of faculty that are doing it together, because it really becomes kind of a community of faculty that then you can reach out to for ideas or for help or support. And that, I think, is just invaluable as a faculty member, because you get isolated in your own little silo department space on campus. And this is a really cool way for us, especially in communication, to make friends in accounting. So and they see value in the work that we do, and they're totally shocked, and they're like, oh, but I could do this too. And it's a really, I think, transformative learning experience. The other element to the GI that's really interesting is it's also tied to a distinction that students can get. So as a faculty member takes the GI pathway, they also learn about how students at UVU can earn this distinction by taking a particular number of courses. And that's pretty cool also, because those courses stretch across the university. So again, that threading is happening from really one space to another. And then after that, the other really cool thing is that it attaches into the Social Impact Center, because one of the elements within that pathway and distinction for students is to do some sort of project. And generally community-based project, I would say. But what it looks like is really up to the students. I have a student right now that I'm mentoring, and she's looking at doing interviews with former children that were in boarding schools in Utah, specifically Ute from the Ute community. And she's looking to do like really an oral history project and do these sort of interviews, and then do entire presentation and project with it. So all in all, there is, like, I would say, a lot of variety and a lot of option, but there's also some really nice structure. I think we've done a really good job as a collective of presenting that we'll meet you where you are. And I think that keeps us relevant to faculty who also feel like, I could never do anything like this. They actually take, they start the class and then they're like, oh, you're actually going to like support me. And it doesn't matter how much I know. And I think that is one of the like really cool parts, and one of the parts about this that I'm like super proud of.
And just a small addition is that we also, the Office of Teaching and Learning had started in conjunction with a lot of the facilitators in the HIP certifications, a kind of a research study. So there is a blanket IRB that has been granted. And so let's say a faculty member wants to investigate how, what's the impact of what they're doing in the classroom. So they just opt in and automatically they're added as a co-investigator as part of this bigger study that investigates the impact of HIP certifications, and not just HIP certification, but also HIP techniques and strategies in the classroom. So that was just another layer that can support faculty in doing that kind of work.
And actually, you know what, to just add on one more element to this, one of the, I think, really neat things about how HIPS has been structured here is that there's a lot of crossover. So what I do is, I would say primarily global intercultural, but I also do service learning. So in my courses, it's really kind of both. It's global intercultural and service learning. We tend to work with refugee organizations or unhomed folks in the Valley, or food insecurity, kind of are the areas we work with in that class. So I think that crossover is also really important, because a lot of times I think the way HIPS is presented is you can only do this or you can only do this, when it's much more blurry than that.
I have some questions for the group, if I may. With us looking at potentially starting with the HIP certification, and I think for us, we haven't yet decided if we're going to do some broad, general, like singular certification on HIPS broadly to include a variety, or some model similar to what you have where you focus on specific high impact practices. Based on your experience, what are some things we should definitely do or include in this process? And maybe where are there pitfalls or challenges you experience that do you have some insights for us to avoid?
Who wants to take that one? Well, I can pitch in. One of the really things that help a lot is the kind of support that your Office of Teaching and Learning or your CTL equivalent can give. So the more your CTL invests in that, the better chance that you'll have a structure that really kind of appeals to faculty. One of the things we found is our faculty members, of course, like everywhere else, are bombarded by emails about every single thing that is happening at the university. But just really making it small, but also kind of reaching out and trying to like see and recruit to the faculty that are interested in that kind of initiative is key, and offering them that facility and ease of like, this is not another hustle that you have to go through, but it's an easy way of doing it. So that kind of like helps a lot. So really building up that CTL structure and that CTL support is kind of key to getting this kicked off. And of course, having the right facilitators that are very enthusiastic about the topic. That I mean, Leah and Stevie, I can tell you that they email sometimes like, oh my God, this is starting and we have to get it done. And they take out of their time to get this working. So picking the right people is also key. I guess we're lucky, but so that would be one thing that I really would stress out. I don't know, anybody else can think of something that helped really? The GI and the designations were good. That was before my time at UVU. So I don't really know much about the designation, but I feel that those were really important to have a course that is designed service learning or designed as a global intercultural, kind of like also supports the idea of I need to learn about all of what I'm about all of the nitty-gritty of that specific HIP in order to be able to implement it in my classroom. So those are two things I can think of. Anything that helped?
I was just going to say, like, I think one thing that comes to mind too, when you get to this phase in the process is considering what the appropriate time frame is for the pathway or the certification. Like I mentioned earlier, our service learning certification can be completed within a month, more or less, depending on whether or not the faculty member needs more time to develop their service learning syllabus. But our global intercultural pathway and the anti-racist certification pathway generally take about a semester for the most part, and those are also kind of run in cohorts. I know before my time here, there was a moment in time where I think service learning might have been taught over the course of 2 semesters or a full year, and that didn't work so well. So kind of scaling the time frame related to the content is also helpful. And I mean, going back to Aisha's point too, one of the things that has been really helpful for faculty members in the last few years during COVID is having the opportunity to roll into the next pathway or the next cohort or the next section if they're not able to do it all like in the summer or in one semester. I mean, it's a little harder on all of our ends, right, respectively, but it does give that extra level of accessibility or time if it's needed. And then that way faculty members still have the support they need to finish when they can.
I guess I would add to this, one of the struggles with doing any of this is figuring out where that baseline is, like of where we're going to start this training at. And I think really sitting in that space is valuable. I think having folks, to Aisha's point also, that are really invested in this and really flexible also, because it's going to require changes, and things are always changing around us too. I mean, I know Leah and I had a moment of realization when we first taught the gender and sexuality workshop, where we had underestimated really where faculty were coming in terms of knowledge on this topic. And so we went back and we're like, okay, we're going to rework some things to create more space for folks to ask, questions. And that was kind of a moment for us of like stepping back and I think you have to have folks, I guess, in the room, what I'm saying, their egos need to be secure, not too fragile, and they need to be willing to take some feedback, because some of these topics, depending on what the HIP is, they're challenging, for a variety of reasons. So I think the right people in the room is definitely a critical component. And I think the delivery too. So while people hate Teams and they hate Zoom and they're like to rag on it, it's honestly really great for this kind of experience, because faculty can come in, they can be doing it over their lunch, they can be on their phone, wherever. And that's been really, really nice. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback about that, and folks liking that. So something to think about in terms of delivery, maybe.
And I think too, to your point, Stevie, that really hits perfectly on kind of assessing what the faculty and staff need and the different levels that they need. Like I mentioned earlier with the anti-racist pedagogy workshop, it started off as just one 2-hour workshop that tried to blend the history of racism in the US and anti-racist pedagogy, and that was a disaster. So then we split it into 2 separate ones, and faculty members were still like, nope, we need more time. We need more like face-to-face interaction. We need more workshop spaces. So then we created another one. And then OTL was gracious enough when we approached them to say, yeah, we have the space and the bandwidth and the funding to help you develop this into a larger thing. Because, the more and more feedback we got, faculty and staff loved it, but they were like, there's just no way in 2 hours or in 4 hours we can talk about all of this, right? So having the OTL supported Canvas shell with the materials and lecture videos and resources, and then face-to-face time just ended up being the best way to structure and facilitate that one. It was a ton of time and effort to build it, and it also takes a lot of time for faculty members. But the reason we did it is because I think that was mostly what faculty members wanted and needed, which is why it's been a big success. So a lot of trial and error went into that one, trying to figure out the scale and also the delivery methods too.
And from the Office on Teaching and Learning perspective, it's also kind of like kind of the bird eye view. So when we talk to, let's say, our administration, we have to kind of like get our give them like the what's in it for me. So because they really don't see the like, oh, they think it's just a bunch of faculty that want to learn all about this, but really getting them to realize that HIPs are not just about faculty learning about certain or getting through a certain certification. It's ultimately because that pushes student success and supporting that with data. So basically, we really did dig deep into the data with about like HIPs and the impact that HIPs have, and really presenting that as like a key component of why we are doing what we're doing. So and really tapping into the idea that HIPs help students develop certain skills. And so like, for example, service learning, that was one of our major points that we kind of like pushed, is like it afforded the idea of engaged learning, and UVU is an engaged institution. So it is crucial that our faculty are certified in all of these things, so that they have that back knowledge, and they're really like securing what they're doing. So really kind of like build it up that way. And we, again, I mean, Wendy was a data nerd, so we basically collected so many graphs and things to present to them to really say, this is why we're doing all of that. So that kind of helped a lot to get the stamp or the endorsement from the ones that I don't generally meet up with.
So the modifications that you make, and I certainly recognize from years of teaching that there are times where you're in front of a group of whoever the audience is, and you realize in real time, oh, this isn't working. And sometimes you can make adjustments on the fly, but it seems to me, were your adjustments based upon perceptions by the instructors, or were you soliciting input and feedback from the participants as well, or is it a combination?
For the anti-racist pedagogy certification, it was definitely both. So OTL sends out surveys at the end of each workshop that's done face-to-face to kind of assess perceptions and experiences and efficacy, things of that nature. And so we had that data already from OTL that was coming from the faculty and staff who attended. And then we were also just seeing on our end, like, there, like certain topics, right? Like racism or lynching or slavery just need more time to debrief and process. And Stevie and I are also in the case right now where with our gender and sexuality workshop, we're trying to parse out like which case studies we want to include in the face-to-face ones. How do we talk about gender, sex, and sexuality in only 2 hours in a way that is accessible for faculty members who have no idea what the words mean, may have never really heard of the word, and they definitely don't know how to include it in their curriculum. So that's also one that if we have the space in the funding, we might make a part 2 of it, because the more and more we teach it based on our own sorts of readings and then the feedback, we're starting to realize that some need more time than others.
Stephanie had asked a question that Leandra responded to about the delivery methods and how content is included in the Canvas site versus what happens in the face-to-face. Would y'all say, then I see from Leandra's response that depends on the particular HIP certification, but would you all mind sharing a little bit about how it is that you handle your content delivery?
So that depends a lot on the HIP. So for example, Leah, they have a course shell. So OTL creates the Canvas shell for them. When they were developing the course, they put all of the material in there. OTL again enrolls faculty to register, and we put them on the course. And then again, we move them from, if they don't complete when they are within this cohort, we basically move the ones that have not completed into the next cohort if they opt in. So so yeah, the OTL does that. And then some of the courses are totally asynchronous. Some of them are a mix, so they're hybrid. There are a couple of sessions that are live streamed, and then other ones are online. We have one of our certification is 3 sessions that are face-to-face, and then the rest of the modules need to be completed online. So it really kind of depends on what the facilitators and the course developers want. And so we offer all of the modalities exactly like you would do for your regular classes.
I had some other questions that were maybe related a little bit more to logistical pieces, and just as far as I know you all are currently able to give faculty a stipend, and so that is helpful for the recruitment piece, but do you see that there's like a lot of buy-in from especially like higher level administration about encouraging participation in this? Or like, I know a lot of times we have like similar faculty that participate in a lot of our programs, but getting in the new folks that like we also want to be part of our programming and not see this as like a any type of like punitive or like your teaching needs to be improved type of process. Like, how do you build that culture around like this is a, you know, helpful, transformative way to like participate, and it's not just for those who think that they need to like quote unquote improve their teaching?
Honestly, I mean, prior COVID helped a lot. But prior to COVID, we did have, like, you know, like you said, the regular people that take everything because that's just who they are and that's what they like to learn. So Sam is actually working on on something that is that we hope is really going to help. We haven't really implemented it because we still have the CARES money, and we still so faculty still have that monetary incentive. But what he's developing, and I don't know if he's here and wants to talk about it, but it's some kind of like a transcript so we keep record of everything that faculty do, and everything goes into that transcript. And then so let's say they complete 3 certifications, then they earn 3 different badges, 1 for each certification, and so all of that goes into one document. So a faculty member can basically log into our website and they can download that transcript that has everything they have done and include that in their RTP portfolio when they submit it. So there is that additional kind of like, we are teaching university. So the idea is that our RTP committees will look at all of these certifications and whether faculty have engaged with continuous professional development, and having that transcript we're hoping is going to be like another layer to incentivize faculty to actually complete those certifications. Again, we are teaching university, so there is also that feeling from faculty that most of our faculty are kind of like, we want to teach well. So so that helps a little bit. That's on the top of my head, some of the things that we do. I don't have the numbers with me, but right now we have, I think in the HIPS, we have certified up to 800 faculty. So over this last couple of years. And yeah, so those were, and basically we have around 1,200 faculty that are full-time. Oh no, 800 full-time and around 1,200 that are adjuncts. And we open it to both adjuncts and full-time faculty.
So when you say certified, is that within one area or across a multitude of areas?
Those are unique certifications.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it could 800 faculty, there may be some duplicates in there wherein one faculty member got more than one certification. Are you double counting is what I'm asking?
I'm not 100% sure. Sam, do you know the answer to that? You're the data guru.
He's a guru. I love that.
I can't answer that question, but I think it's a unique. I can get back to you with that information because on the top of my head, I can't really tell.
And yeah, how did you say that they do the transcript piece? Because we have that sort of on the student side, they get like a co-curricular transcript. And so that sounds like a really good sort of parallel in the faculty world, that like exactly what you're talking about, to use for like promotion and tenure and like make it something that they can be proud of and have something to show for. So is that just through like Badger, or how does that show up?
No, so again, Sam is the techie person. So he created, I have no idea what he created. He wrote a code somewhere in the realm of like this weird. So all I know is like you go onto the website, there is a button that you can click, and then once you click on it, it basically tells you everything you have done. So we have a data dashboard, and it pulls all of the information from the data, and then it tells you like here are all of the certifications that you have completed. So all the certification are kind of grade, and once you earn a certification, it stops being grade and it turns into the regular color. So, and then it also lists all of the events that you have attended. It lists all of the workshops that you have attended. It also has like, so if you have gained your Higher Education Academy Fellowship, it's also on there showing that you have done this. We also gather data about like if you are mentoring. So we have a lot of our faculty who mentor other faculty. So we, and we give them service, it counts for service. So we also include in the transcript the number of people that you have mentored, in addition to the number of service hours you have gained through mentoring. If you have assessed, that also is included in the transcript. So basically it's a document that kind of like boils down all of the data from the data dashboard and makes it in a more ergonomically accessible way for faculty.
Yeah, we definitely need that.
Yeah, you can talk to Sam. He's the one who created that whole thing. Like, I have no idea how he does it. My PhD is in speech pathology, people. So I'm like, don't talk data to me or coding. But also, like Sam, what she's trying to do is make it that it extends past OTL, where like anything you do at the level of the institution gets into that transcript. So for a faculty member, they don't have to go and grab like, oh, I did this with OTL and I did this with the Accessibility Center and I did this. So it all lives in one area.
One other thing that also came to mind that could be a helpful pilot test idea in the future, if you get to this point, is communities of practice, which we have also started doing here at UVU as another like round 2 to help support our HIPs. So like I'm leading our service learning community of practice, Stevie's running our global intercultural community of practice. And basically what happens there is after someone completes the certification through any of the HIPs, they're able to join the community of practice, which has one monthly meeting at various dates and times. And they're also kind of taking different approaches to building and sustaining communities. So service learning, for example, since we have a Center for Social Impact, we're kind of using our community of practice to build bridges between faculty and the center programming. So we're kind of scheduling meetings with like community partners or having faculty members present brown bag style on lessons learned. We're also piloting book club style approaches in some of our communities of practice as well. That's what we're doing with the anti-racist pedagogy community of practice, and global intercultural is kind of doing something a little different as well. So these, I think, are a little more challenging to get faculty members to attend because we don't offer stipends. I mean, we're trying to be creative in terms of maybe having like small lunches or refreshments if we do them face-to-face, but it's like an extra level of support and community building for faculty members who want to keep having that if that's something that they need. Yeah, Stevie, is there anything you'd share about the GI COP?
I mean, you know, I think the question around will folks attend if there's no financial incentive is a valuable one. But I would say what we found is folks will still attend, because in the community of practice, there's no financial incentive. In fact, up until this year, correct me if I'm wrong, Leah, there really hasn't been anything other than connection between faculty and then maybe a resource of some kind in terms of like a reading that someone found, and they're going to bring that as like the jumping off point for the conversation. But folks still attend, and folks are still interested in, if they can attend, they message you and they'll say like, I can't come this month, but I'll definitely be there next month. So I think that creating of community is really important. I would also say that one of the things that's happened here since I've been here, and I know one of my other colleagues who's been here longer than me, OTL, or our Office of Teaching and Learning, those requirements were built into our department's RTP policy, our promotion and tenure policy. And that's been very, I would say, helpful also, because then as junior faculty were hired, that culture is just passed down, passed down, passed down, passed down. And I would say when I got here in 2016, there wasn't a super strong culture in my department of doing it. There was one person, maybe two, and I would say that has definitely changed dramatically. That folks are, they sign up for the book clubs, or they sign up for other things, related to HIPS and not related to HIPS. So I think if it can be tied to your RTP at all, I think also it's really helpful in our case, like Dr. Janet Colvin, who couldn't be here today, she's the associate dean of our college. She's heavily invested. She's a vocal advocate too. So having that administrative support is also really helpful to encourage faculty, but also to get the ear of the administration, right? So this bridge between
So can I ask numerically what the level of engagement in these COPs is on your campus?
Yeah, so I think for service learning, just as an example, last year, we probably had 40 to 50 faculty members in the team who had recently been certified. We have ballpark 10 folks attend each live meeting, but we would record them so folks could watch them later.
It really depends. Like last year, we kind of struggled a little bit, or some COPs struggled, especially the brand new one. So we had just launched the team-based learning, and it was just a brand new thing. And so we struggled there. And one of the main struggles that we got from the data was that faculty they would show up, but then there would not be a structure as to what they want to talk about. So it'd be like, oh, we're here, what are we doing now? And who's taking the lead on this, and all of that. So and that's what started this new idea of like, oh, well, maybe we should run it as a learning circle. And so again, it's like what Leah was talking about and Stevie was talking about is, so there is a book, and again, the Office of Teaching and Learning purchases the book for everybody, and then faculty can just come grab it from the Office of Teaching and Learning, and there's a way for them to kind of like have that kind of like, if everything fails, there is a book to talk about. So that kind of like approach to, and we have been running learning circles forever at the Office of Teaching and Learning, and it's one of our most attended events. So we feel that that could be a good way to approach the COPs, so that the conversation keeps going, but there's also some kind of informal, formal, semi-formal structure.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think I could describe our learning circles as like bubbles in a stream. They come and go, and some bubbles get bigger than others, and then they explode. I'd love to be able to see one just maintain its size and its mission, but I guess that construct it's one of the things that are challenging. One of the things that is challenging. I think for every university probably around the world, just to keep some sustained enthusiasm. Money helps. We don't have any money. We're broke over here. Don't tell anybody. This isn't being recorded, is it? Oh, it is. Okay, too bad. Well, I'm kind of early on saying this, but I just want to say thank you for your perspectives and for these approaches. They certainly provide some important context from my perspective, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way. I'm curious. I mean, so we heard a lot about the one HIP. I'm wondering, I know that many of you have multiple HIP connections. Could you dive a little deeper? I mean, we don't have time for real deep, but just a little bit deeper on some of the inputs and outputs with respect to, for instance, service learning or something along those lines.
I'm not sure I understand your question. So are you asking about like other HIPs that are like not service learning and not the global
Racial equity.
part?
Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. So I'm director of undergraduate research. Why don't I ask about that?
Yes, okay.
Look, why don't I be selfish here and forgive me for that selfishness? But
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
the undergraduate research, I don't know if Stevie and Leah have any background on that. Have you ever been involved with that? Okay. Do you want to take that, Leah?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, our undergraduate research one was called the Mentoring Academy at one point, and then I think is either renamed to Sculpt or also affiliated with Sculpt. So student creative, undergraduate works, things of that nature. I took it back in spring 2020 when life changed because of COVID. But it was really great because we worked together. We had one primary text as kind of our guiding book. And then we worked together with our facilitators and other faculty classmates to kind of develop a systematic, informed approach to mentoring undergraduate students through research. So we kind of developed different items for our portfolios related to like student mentoring plans, student mentoring agreements. I mean, I hate the word contract, but it was kind of similar to that, right? We did a lot of reflecting on previous mentoring experiences and then trying to set us up better for success with that. And it's also closely connected to our Sculpt conference that we have every April, where several of us will like mentor students to present undergraduate research. We also work with students to present research at UCUR, which is the Utah Conference on Undergraduate Research. And then at the end of the day, we also have a Sculpt faculty committee and a Sculpt community of practice, which happens after the fact too. Stevie, did you also take that one? Maybe many moons ago, pre-tenure?
It's fuzzy at best. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time. This might be a good plug for even if you can't remember or you have taken it and you don't remember, that I would say the communities of practice, I got into one of those. And it probably was via Leah, because I was working with a student on a project and Leah was like, you should do this. And then that helped me figure out funding for my student to go to one of the undergrad research conferences. So that threading for faculty, again, I would say is one of the least talked about aspects of this, but that's how this also, in my mind, it keeps going, right? And that's how the faculty then take it back to the classroom. That's how we keep it going with the students.
yeah.
When I was thinking about other HIPs, I mean, I'm just taking the one right now, the team-based or problem-based learning, I believe I'm involved in, also team-based learning. I've also done the WE, so the writing enriched. Quite a few of my colleagues actually did that. And that was also great and interesting. I would say that some of these are really useful too for faculty to get involved in, depending on where the administration is moving in conversations. And so with writing enriched, this was a big administrative conversation that happened. It got the ear of a lot of faculty. And then faculty wanted to be more informed on what it was. And there was a whole bunch of folks who then went and took that and then brought that information back to the department, which I think was really useful and helpful.
Yeah, and structure wise too, if I remember correctly, I think there were probably 4 face-to-face meetings every few weeks or so, where we started off by reading the book and then started kind of developing our own mentoring plans, or our outputs, if you will. And then those were also really helpful too for our midterm review when we went up at the start of our 3rd year, because a lot of those documents, well, a majority of any of the documents we have from any of our HIPs, right, we can include in our teaching section for professional development, and then also for research, depending on the mentoring and publishing with undergraduate students. So having those tangible outputs from the HIPs is also really helpful, because it kind of just seamlessly funnels into our portfolios.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I pulled up your school page and was able to look at that. And I'm sure Sarah, I saw her perk up when you mentioned writing enrichment. So
we
thank
do
you.
have a writing enriched designation for courses. So certain courses are designed or designated writing enriched, and generally for a faculty to be able to teach those courses, they have to complete that certification. It's highly encouraged by the chairs of the departments.
I have one last question related to compensation. So you shared what the faculty participants, what they get for participating. For those of you that are facilitating these, how are you compensated? And is it monetarily? Is it in terms of course releases, all of the above?
I can jump on that one. I'm sorry I had to step out. I'm interim senior director, so I had an emergency to pop up that I had to go take care of. But thank you everyone for covering any of those questions. But yeah, we do compensate our, again, all of this is with CARES funding. And keep in mind that a lot of the work that these facilitators are doing are not only what they're doing right now, but also the development of these types of courses. So right now, the 25-hour course, we compensate them $6,000. And then for the 12.5 hours, we compensate them $3,000. But we probably, once we learn the HER funding, we're going to have to kind of figure out we're in the PBA requests, because we're going to have to replace that funding with something else. And so that conversation, as well as all the other ones, are going to, that day of reckoning is coming in about 8 months. So until then, we're going to maintain it, and then we will do our best. We do recognize that if excellent work, and that's really what it is that if faculty are spending their time doing this, that we need to recognize them for that. Although I will admit, I mean, Stevie and Leandra can tell you, some of this is intrinsic, they would want to do some of this anyways. So the money is, and they will tell you, the money is kind of like a side, thank you for recognizing my time, but most of it is stuff that they really enjoy doing anyways. And so we'll figure out what makes sense to recognize that time in the future with what we have for funds.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question to that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it generally tenure or tenure track faculty that lead the certification sort of drive?
For the most part, yes, just because that's the area of expertise. That's who's taken on that HIP. That's the people who are interested in that space already. And we try to find those type of people on campus. So it's not like we're just, now if there was an adjunct that was really interested in one of these and they were the best expert on our campus in that pedagogical approach, I'm sure we would consider that, but it's just something we don't quite see as often.
Well, thanks for that additional input. I was going to ask, what are you going to do when the money's gone? But it sounds like you were scrambling hard to help ensure that won't happen. And
well,
good
and that's
luck.
where we invested in the program. We built it up. That was really what the money was for.
Yeah.
And now that it's going away, and we're not going to be able to compensate. So you saw we pay $1,000 and $500. The question is can we get some sort of compensation? What makes that reasonable? And I saw there was a question there that, what's the stipend piece? How much do you think would, and we don't know that yet. That's going to be the challenge 2.0, right? How do we keep this program, the wheels spinning, once we've built it and got the momentum? And our goal is to try to kind of, the law of motion, right? Now we got the object moving. Will it stay in motion if we can keep as much, what pieces are required to keep that? And so that's really our next challenge that we're working on right now.
Well, on behalf of the High Impact Practices Committee at UNCG, we want to thank you so much, UVU team, for giving of your time, both in preparation of today's conversation and your time with us. We will share, for those of you from UNCG, we will share this recording on our UTLC HIPS website. And we will have another brown bag this semester focused on service learning. So be on the lookout for that information in the UTLC newsletter. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having us.